Ready.
Okay. All right, for the next position, we're going to be measuring the thumb and the fingers, and I have you look this way at the thumb. The first position we're going to do is MP flexion, and then we'll do IP flexion of the thumb. You're going to use a little goniometer for this one. You can even use a cutoff goniometer for this one. For our purposes right now, I'm going to use this one here. So you've got your goniometer, and we're going to lay it down with a flat edge across here, the base, from the base of that MP against that first ray, and then I'm going to have you bend as far as you can bend into your palm, Scott, so maintaining that position here and measuring across the joint. And oh, you've got some good range of motion. And so that's measuring up at a little bit beyond 75 degrees, and then the IP here, you can go ahead and do the same thing. If we're looking at composite, we'll be going all the way down into the palm, or you can isolate that out just as long as you're consistent in how you do it. And again, we can do a flat access here. In Scott's case, he's got a little swing going to that distal phalanx, so I might choose to put the short edge there where I can get a flat line across the joint and then measure there, and that's measuring out a nice 75 as well. So when you look at your ranges, if you ever get confused if you're looking at the smaller or the larger range, stand back and look at the joint. Does this joint look like it's 105 degrees? And it doesn't. 105 degrees being greater than 90. So if you're ever confused when you look at your goniometer and you see, oh, 105 or 75, which is it? Stand back and just bird's eye view at the joint and see where.
And when you pinch it, place that person's body part in there and say, which side of that goniometer did I measure? Because if I point to this side, it's obviously going to be a smaller angle between the two arms. But if my thumb was on that side, it's a slightly larger angle.
Exactly. All right. Should we look at, I measure opposition lag. There's several measurements of the thumb that we're not going to talk about today, but that we can go through when we get together in class and we can review. But the next position I do want to measure is thumb opposition. And that position is going to be simply measured from thumb to small finger, pad to pad, in measurement of what we call a lag. So you would either note this as full opposition is noted. He can fully oppose his thumb to his small finger, or if he is unable, you will note that as an opposition lag. So it'll be a lag or an inability to make full opposition. So what I do when I measure this is I am using the pad of one finger to the next. And there's a little bit of subjectivity to this because we've got an edge here that doesn't account for our ruler. But if you look at this, you've got about 2.5 centimeters of a lag in this position. Does that make sense? Let's do it from this angle where you can see that better. So from pad to pad. Okay? All right, should we go on to fingers? Fingers we're going to measure in this position here, because we're going to go across the joint like so. I'm going to also use the larger goniometer. Again, you may use a smaller one or a cutoff one. We're going to start with the MP here, and I'm just going to ask you, Scott, to make what we call a tabletop position, and I'm going to measure grossly across the back of the metacarpal to the first proximal phalanx, or the first phalanx, P1, or the proximal phalanx. Because this is not, again, an easy flat edge, I'm going to use the short edge across here. My swing arm is going to go across P1, and we're going to measure that out at about 85 degrees. Okay? If there was a lag there, just like we talked about with our elbow, he doesn't have full extension or a straight line, that will be written as a number, in Scott's case right now, 35 to 85. Or you may write it as a negative 35, or you may write lacks 35 degrees of extension. Again, just like we described in the elbow. Okay? Going across distally, across the PIP joint, same thing, starting at 0. So this would be measured at and written as 0/90. 90 or 85 degrees, it looks like in Scott's case. And then across the next joint, again, I'm using the shorter end. You can use it either way, the same idea. Starting at 0, or a straight line, and then going down into flexion. Got to alter it to where it makes sense for you, where you can read it and look at it, and where it will lie flat. And again, he's right around 80 degrees.
Now, Diana, earlier you used the word composite, where that's all of the joints kind of flexing together. Do you ever block any of them to measure individually?
Yep, and it'll depend on what you're measuring, and again, consistency is the key. So in my case, how I like to do it is I like to measure. I like to isolate out the MP, so I'll measure just the MP in this position here, and I'll have the patient get into that position. And then I will have them get into what's called an intrinsic minus position or claw position, and I'll measure the IPs. You can measure composite. It's harder to get your goniometer in there, so I tend not to do that. As long as you're consistent with how you measure and you know how you're measuring and what you're looking for, then you're in good shape.